It's Monday, which means it's time to look at the pluses and minuses of the past week in Nashville Predators hockey, including a question a lot of Preds fans want answered. What's up with the goaltending? We'll break that down today on the Locked On Predators podcast.
Your Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making the Locked On Predators podcast your first listen of the day every single day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I want to start with a special hello to our loyal Locked On Pred heads out there, the everydayers who turn into every single show. We love you guys. We appreciate the support you give us week in and week out. It's Monday. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer at Penalty Box Radio, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer at The Hockey News.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. And it is Monday, which means it's time for Plus Minus, where we look at the highs and lows of the past week of Predators hockey, give pluses to things we like, minuses to things that need work. And let's start out with one of each. The plus, hey, the Nashville Predators offense got cooking on Saturday. 5 goals. Really good offensive performance, great possession. Just looked like they absolutely dominated the Arizona Coyotes in terms of possession and offense. Bad news is they let in 7 goals.
I mean, it's like you can't have one without the other. We just want all nice things, friends. And Arizona, like the first period, they came out and Andrew Brunette had said, like, we need a fast start. We want to get Bridgestone involved early. You know, we need to really hit the ground running. And they did. They did. The first period was great. They were up 2-0. And then they just kept letting Arizona back in. It was one of the most exciting from an offensive standpoint games we've seen so far this season. It was one of the most frustrating games I think that we've seen from a defensive and goaltending standing. It was like, is it A Tale of Two Cities? Is that the book that starts, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times? That was Saturday night at Bridgestone Arena, friends.
Yeah. Yeah, Predators outshot the Arizona Coyotes 41-24. The expected goals, according to Natural Stat Trick, the Predators had 3.73. The Coyotes had 2.4. So by all accounts, the Predators should have won this game.
Should have won this game. Yeah.
Not just won this game, but won it pretty handily. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's just like, of course this happens. The Predators finally, fix, the team in front of the goaltending. And then, the goaltending just isn't there. And there's been a couple of those games, and we're going to get to more on that in a couple seconds. But yeah, of course, Anne, like this is the game where it all sort of breaks down.
It was rough. And you know what was actually even more difficult for me than watching the Predators lose a game that on a cellular level that they should have won? And not that Arizona is not a team that's on the up and up and all of that, because Arizona had some great plays too. But in the locker room afterward, Ryan O'Reilly was crushed. Like he was crushed. Oh, I mean, you want to talk about somebody who is not remotely interested in losing a game like that? I'd like to introduce you to Ryan O'Reilly, because I'm telling you, we talked with him, Dante, Fabbro, and Filip Forsberg, and 3 crushed and frustrated. I mean, frustrated hockey players right there. So y'all, something's gotta be done in Nashville, because they were beside themselves. Like Ryan O'Reilly, I would say was near tears. He was that frustrated.
But that's the frustration is, here we go. Like we said, the Nashville Predators needed to be better with possession. They needed to clean up things in front of their net. Their defense needed to step up and limit teams from being able to score. They needed to do all these things. They needed to have more energy. They needed to have more effort.
Yes.
And they did all that.
Yes.
Against Arizona, it's just the goaltending didn't back them up.
It was crazy. We've talked about, my dad has 3 temperature gauges, fresh, brisk, and brutal. Saturday night's game was brutal, y'all. It was brutal to come away with a loss after that game. That was a gut check.
Yeah.
It was bad.
There's going to be more discussion from a couple certain aspects of this game coming up in just a little bit. Maybe that's a hint as to which way one of these minuses go. Yeah. But let's start with a plus, Ann. And it was a big plus from Saturday's game and a big plus from last week. And that plus to me is Filip Forsberg. Remember, it was not last Friday, but 2 Fridays ago, you and I did a podcast. We talked about Filip Forsberg's goal scoring. Even though he was leading the team in points, he only had 1 goal up through the first month of the season. And we're like, yeah, like the points are good. We love that he's setting up plays. We love that he's getting an offense. But he's Filip Forsberg. He's our 42 goal guy. We need him to go back and be that guy. We need him to be the guy that takes the puck, makes a play, and puts it in the back of the net himself. I choose to believe he listened to that episode, because in the 4 games since that podcast aired, 5 goals for Filip Forsberg, including back-to-back games now with 2 goals. He has 17 points on the season. I mentioned, some of his stats on Twitter earlier. He now has points in 6 of his last 7 games, and 4 of those 6 games are multi-point games.
Yes, come on.
This is the Filip Forsberg. Not only are we used to seeing in Nashville, but the kind of one we desperately need.
Yes, this is the Filip Forsberg that we've been waiting for. Now we're cooking with gas, y'all. Now we're cooking with gas. And for me, it's not even so much that he's scoring goals. It's a little bit about how he's scoring the goals and when he's scoring the goals, because, we're used to seeing, Filip Forsberg with these smooth goals. And he had one of those, I think it was against Winnipeg, where he kind of took it from Nyquist at the blue line, skated in, toe dragged around a sprawling defender and scored a goal. He had one in Arizona where he just sort of casually skated into the zone and then zipped it, past God love him and we miss him, Connor Ingram. But he also has had goals making space in front of the net. Like, Filip Forsberg is just going to get it done however he needs to get it done. And that's something that we have been waiting for. We've been waiting for that goal scorer, to kick in. It's also, for me, a little bit about the when he's doing it, because we haven't really had that response player who's like, you know what, things aren't going our way. I'm just going to throw this team on my back right now, and I'm going to turn the tide. And we saw Forsberg do that in the games against Winnipeg and against Arizona. He had goals that tied things back up again. He had goals that interrupted momentum. And I think that's who we assumed we would see from the get-go from Forsberg. He's that guy. And I think now it's coming together. And we have the stats for that kind of thing, like we talked about. Great quality shots before, they just weren't going in. Now they're going in. And the Predators still didn't win. But we're gonna work on the other stuff, and we're gonna address the other stuff too. But yes, it's a different looking Predators offense when you have Filip Forsberg cooking with gas.
Yeah, and it's sort of the same situation like with Ryan O'Reilly that we mentioned last week, where him being able to do stuff that he was doing 2 years ago when he had the 84-point season, when he scored 42 goals, that takes a lot of pressure off of some of these other lines. Like that gives the Nashville Predators, okay, here's a top line that has top line level production. And if Filip Forsberg can keep this up, if he can be like an 80, 90-point player again, then the Nashville Predators are going to be in good shape. They just kind of need the team behind him to sort of do what they've been averaging,
Yes.
Maybe a couple of players here or there need to step up the production, but they have that top line, and that's one of the hardest things in the NHL to have.
Yeah.
So if Filip Forsberg can do that, that certainly changes, I think, a lot of things with how we look at this Nashville Predators team this year.
Agreed.
There's a couple of other pluses that we want to get to, plus a couple of big minuses from this season so far. We're going to dive into those in just 1 second. But first, want to mention today's episode brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. Those are 3 things that help a team bring home a championship trophy. And it's also 3 things that helps keep your ride or die alive in that garage. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlines, you name it. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number 1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. That's because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Iron Ann, let's get to a minus because it's not all sunshine and rainbows in Smashville. That's kind of what happens when you on a big old losing streak and second worst team in your division. Yeah. And what's a big minus for you?
I mean, there's a couple of other ones that I want to address, but I think we do need to kind of just sift through and talk about what is maybe the biggest concern to Nashville Predators fans this week. And for me, and gosh, I don't even want to say it out loud, we're giving up some goals, y'all.
It is the goaltending.
I don't even want to say it, but it's the thing that we have to talk about. The Nashville Predators gave up 17 goals this week. 17 goals this week. And I don't know that we're seeing peak Saros. We've talked about Juuse Saros as a crock pot. He's not a microwave. I think the crock pot's on low. Yeah. It's not on high. And so this has been a rough week to watch goaltending. There have definitely been goals that Juuse Saros would want back that I think we all feel like, hey, now that's not one that he would probably likely let in. I think that Saros is probably frustrated with what's been going on in the goaltending too. And it's interesting because there have definitely been defensive lapses that have absolutely left Saros hung out to dry. So this is not all on the goaltending. There have been some defensive performances where, all of a sudden it's like, hey, look, there's an opponent in the slot untouched. It is not lava for whoever we're playing.
Yeah.
But man, it's rough. It's been rough this week, Nick, and it's not something I think we're used to seeing at this level.
And here's the confusing thing, because if you watch the games itself, you see Juuse Saros and Kevin Lincoln, because he's been in 3 games so far this year.
That's true.
You see them making some highlight reel saves, big saves at point blank range. You see them a couple of games like that Calgary game from this past week, where it's like, okay, if Juuse Saros isn't playing half as well as he is right now, this game is an absolute blowout.
Right.
But then you've also seen games against Arizona where it's all of a sudden it's like, okay, we were dominating this team. Like, we own possession. What happened here? And my colleague over at Penalty Box Radio, Boyd Farish, brought up some interesting numbers that he pulled from Natural Stat Trick. Nashville Predators goaltending this year, high danger save percentage. These are like the crazy saves, the shots at point blank range, the deflections, the weird bounces, the one-timers right in front of the net. Preds are 7th in high danger save percentage.
Come on.
They are 7th in mid danger save percentage.
Let's go.
Low danger save percentage, 30th.
That's so crazy.
In the NHL. These are, and then 32nd on the power play, but those low danger save percentage, those are the those are the easy saves. Those are the saves that should be routine for NHL goaltenders. And those are the ones that seem to be getting past Juuse Saros this season.
Yeah. Yeah, and those are the ones where, when you see that stat, it's interesting because you look at how many goals 17 goals scored against this week, and you think back eye test, and you think, how many times in the Arizona game did you hear the crowd go, "Juice"? Because, I mean, just amazing saves, but it's those there have been several goals where you're like, "Ooh, ooh, want that one back." And it makes me wonder, like, is it on the defense a little bit? I mean, obviously, it's ultimately on the goaltender because that's just the gig. But when it's a low danger chance, don't you feel like maybe, like, should we have blocked more of those shots? Do you feel like I
But
don't know.
it's like last year, Nashville Predators were one of the top teams in blocked shots. Like that's not you're not going to block every single shot that a team is
No.
going to have. And yeah, let's throw it out there. Like, not all the Predators' struggles this season are Juuse Saros' fault.
Right.
Allowing less than 39 and 37 shots on goal, like they did this week against Calgary and Winnipeg, would certainly help your goaltending out a little bit. But there's also been some of those performances where you look at the defense and you look at kind of the numbers, and it's like, okay, this defense actually did do relatively well.
Right.
And it's those games that it's like the Preds are giving up 4, 5, and then as we saw this week, 6 goals.
Yeah.
And that's the frustrating part, is because there are a lot of games that you look at and say, okay, this isn't last year. The Predators defense is playing really well.
They are good. Yeah.
And it just hasn't, the goaltending hasn't cooked.
It's really tough, and you do talk about the defense. When McDonough was in, I think that at one point the Predators had all 3 of their defensive pairings were in the top 20 statistically for performance, and so the defense has been good, and you can't even say like, oh, Mark Del Gaizo, McDonough's out. You do lose something when Ryan McDonough's out of the lineup. That's just what's real. But Mark Del Gaizo has been incredible. He has been great. Andrew Brunette said after the Winnipeg game, he thought Mark Del Gaizo was a guy who had probably one of the best games of anybody. So it's not even like you can say, well, without McDonough, the numbers are atrocious. And but man, it's hard to see Juuse Saros let in some of the goals that he's let in. It's just difficult to watch. And I don't think it helps. Just as an aside, I don't think it helps that there is a low simmering rumor mill when it comes to goaltending and trading. It just makes this feel less pleasant. Less pleasant.
You just hinted on something that's going to be our topic for tomorrow's Locked On Predators.
I've got thoughts. I've got big feelings. Yeah.
Yeah. Stay tuned for that, because that is going to be an interesting discussion. It's not just Juuse Saros.
Nope.
But Kevin Lankinen and Yaroslav Askarov have also been names mentioned in trade talk. So, yeah, we're going to dive into the goaltending rumor mill on tomorrow's Locked On Predators podcast. Another minus, and boy, this is a weird one, and we feel like you just have to say it. Yakov Trenin.
I am not okay with this.
This is the definition to me of snake bitten. He's 5th on the team individual expected goals, 6th in individual high danger chances, 8th in total shots. He's on the ice for, averaging just about 13, 14 per game this season. He's on he's bounced kind of between the second or the not second, but third and fourth lines this year. He's gotten some good opportunities. He's generated some offense. 0 points to show for it. Not just 0 goals, 0 points. And it all culminated Saturday when he was a healthy scratch, pulled from the lineup. And as Alex Doherty pointed out, it's the first time since November 23rd of last year that Yakov Trenin has been out of the lineup for injury, for scratch, for anything. So this is almost a year game streak. A guy who's been a consistent piece of this team just, pulled because he just hasn't been able to finish this year.
Yeah, and I am not a fan of the term snake bit because I think that there's probably a little less hockey voodoo than what hockey players think there is. But I have to agree with this one. Like, this is some weird cosmic joke and it's over. Like, it's not funny anymore because Yakov Trenin, like you said, he is one of the top offensive generators. He's, the shot chances and everything just statistically, I can't make it make sense. I test, I can't make it make sense. And, I'm with you, to see him as a healthy scratch Saturday night, that's tough. At some point, you have to do something to kind of reset mentally, and I think just kind of cleanse the palate. So maybe this healthy scratching was like that mint sorbet you get in between, servings at a fancy restaurant. It's strong, it's potent, you don't want a lot of it, but it's going to cleanse the palate. And Yakov Trenin, this is one that I find very distressing.
It's the ginger.
We need him.
Yeah. It's the ginger that you eat between the pieces of sushi.
I wouldn't know that, but I believe you.
You've never had sushi?
Never, not even once. No.
My goodness.
It's too high on my E. coli potential gauge.
Oh, live a little bit, Kimmel. Come on. I'm with you. This benching Yakov Trenin, it doesn't seem like an indictment of the play. It just seems maybe an indictment of, we're going to give you a break. You haven't been scoring. We're going to try to make you less frustrated. Almost like, what the situation with Cody Glass was last year, where it was just, okay, we see you're getting a little bit frustrated. We're going to give you a game to maybe cool off, recenter. I don't think it's going to be long before Trenin's back in the lineup.
No.
It can't all be bad, though, Anne. So let's end with a couple of pluses, some highlights we want to talk about. We'll do that in just a second.
First, want to let you know this episode is brought to you by our great friends at the Sleeper app. A new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities, and we've seen pretty much all of them already in Nashville. Filip Forsberg, hey, now he could maybe score 50 goals. Nashville could climb their way back up in the standings and compete for a wild card spot, and you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper. It is the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. You can also keep up with game highlights, NHL scores, breaking news and stats on Sleeper, and you can connect with other Predators fans to talk about your picks as well. So all you have to do is go to the Sleeper app and pick whether players like Filip Forsberg or Ryan O'Reilly or Cale Makar will record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more. For example, tonight we have 2 NHL games. Are you going to pick? Will Leon Draisaitl have more or less than 3.5 shots on goal? Will Ryan Nugent-Hopkins have more or less than 1.5 points? Will Ryan Johansson break all our hearts and have more or less than 0.5 goals? To win 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. So check out the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL, and you will get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and for locational availability.
All right, Ann, we can't all be negative Nancy's over here. We're optimists. Let's end on a couple of pluses, as we always do, shall we?
Yes.
Give us another plus.
I'm going to give a plus to some unique and exciting secondary scoring. Let us hear it for Michael McCarron. Big sexy. I feel a little bit uncomfortable, but that's just who he is by name. Don't know any more about that. But Michael McCarron had a goal against Calgary on a fantastic play with Liam Foudy and with Mark Del freaking Gaizo. And I know that's his birth name. It's probably not. I also want to give a shout out to Dante Fabbro, who had a great play against Arizona. And take a minute, friends. Phil Tomasino got the monkey off his back with a goal this week as well. I know the game was a loss, but you know what? Here's what's great. It is great to see Phil Tomasino back in the lineup. It's good to kind of see him feel like maybe he can exhale a little bit too. So shout out to those guys for some secondary scoring.
Yeah.
Names you don't hear that much so far this season, but maybe they're just warming up.
Yeah, if you follow me on Twitter, you might have seen a fun thread saying Phil Tomasino's stats without Michael McCarron and then his stats with Michael McCarron. It's like playing next to Connor McDavid when Phil Tomasino is with Michael McCarron. I don't know why. There's something about that chemistry there. Also want to shout out Dante Fabbro and because a goal and assist, that's only the 6th multi-point game of his career, the first since the 2022 season. But even beyond that, this is a guy that's been playing some really strong hockey.
Gosh, he has.
Really strong hockey, especially defensively next to Roman Josi. Remember, this was a guy that a lot of people thought, okay, as the Preds are kind of ending the Dante Fabbro franchise defender experiment. He was a healthy scratch for the first game. Looked like he kind of lost out on a spot. And then Luke Schenn gets hurt. Josi jumps back into Schenn's spot on that number 1 pairing next to Roman Josi, and he has absolutely killed it this year. His metrics, are through the charts. It really one of the best defensive pieces on a Nashville Predators team that has been much improved defensively this year. And yeah, a lot of it deserves, Dante Fabbro deserves some credit for that. So kudos to him.
Yeah, I think that's great. Another player I want to give a quick shout out to, it's one that we mentioned in passing quite a bit, but I really want to dial in and focus in on Kiefer Sherwood.
Right.
We talk about this line of Evangelista, Novak, and Sherwood, and we tend to focus on like this amazing, creative, smart playmaking of Tommy Novak, and we talk about the passing sense and the anticipation of Luke Evangelista, and both of those things are true. And then we kind of throw Sherwood in there as like, and he goes and he gets the puck for them. And it's funny because, in talking to him, that's a little bit to what Kiefer Sherwood has said, like, hey, my job is to like go and get the puck and get it to them. We are all selling him way too short. And so is he.
Yeah.
Kiefer Sherwood, yes, he has a lot of speed, physicality. He is tenacious when it comes to a puck battle. He is an absolute little brother pest kind. But what he has done over the offseason is really focused on finishing. Last season he was frustrated that he left too many goals on the board. And he's really working hard to not do that. And, seeing him be able to finish this week on some of those goals, you're seeing him play with confidence, and he had this up and down season last season. I think he really has solidified how important he is to this team all on his own. Yes, he's a great compliment to Novak and Evangelista, and that line is probably the highlight so far of the season for the Nashville Predators. But shout out to Kiefer Sherwood as an individual for, making improvements, but also for what he brings to the table. He needs a little bit more personal compliment.
Yeah, and somebody who has also been playing really well. Big question mark before the season. Was he going to get the same chance he got last year? And he's come in. I think he's proven that he deserves a top 9 spot in this lineup because he has good chemistry with a lot of players. He's contributing a lot during games, and he's a big part of this team this season. So it's good to see him. And I'm going to give one final plus to the calendar. More specifically, the Nashville Predators calendar in November. You and I stayed up till BFE o'clock watching all those West Coast road trips.
Come on.
For me personally, who lives on the East Coast, I was up till 1 o'clock breaking down some terrible Vancouver game. Nashville Predators was starting with that game Saturday. That's a stretch of 9 out of 10 of the next Predators games at the home comfort of Bridgestone Arena. And there are some really good games on that calendar. We have another one against the Minnesota Wild. We got one against the Winnipeg Jets. The New York Rangers come to town, the Colorado Avalanche, and Ryan Johansson. We get our first look at them. And this Saturday, the Connor Bedard-led Chicago Blackhawks come to Bridgestone Arena for the first time. So not only is it good that fans are going to get to see some good teams in action. They're not going to have to stay up like we did till BFE o'clock watching some of these.
Yes.
There. And so, we get some home cooking, and the Nashville Predators get to stay home.
Yes.
Not have to worry about the chaotic travel.
I am super pumped about this. The sleep factor is huge, friends. We're not going to lie. The sleep factor is huge when they're playing on the West Coast. But yeah, I do think there's an interesting slate of games. I'm very excited, obviously, to see Connor Bedard play, but I'm excited to see Connor Bedard and Luke Evangelista on the ice at the same time, because Luke Evangelista is right up there in the top 5 when it comes to rookie points this season too with Connor Bedard. So maybe they'll hang out. See what happens when they are on the ice at the same time. Let's go, Luke.
Yeah. And talk about Luke Evangelista's Calder Trophy win this coming year.
That's right.
Plan out what the after party is going to be like.
That's right. Luke will let you come and visit it, Connor.
Yeah. Shameless plug. If you want to read more about the pluses and minuses we talked about, I got an article coming up today on Penalty Box Radio, so search for that. You can also find me at _NS Morgan if you want to check out the link there. And where can people find your work?
You can find my work online at thehockeynews.com, where I do another shameless plug. I talked to Ryan O'Reilly about all of his personal hockey memorabilia, and where his first NHL goal puck will choke you up. So check that out. It's coming out later this morning, and that is at InsideThePreds.com.
Yeah. That's going to do it for us on today's Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Back tomorrow with an all-new episode. We'll see you then.